show. I'm Jenna Morton.
And I'm Tosh Taylor. And on today's show, we're going to be talking with a repeat guest. You'll know Melody's face as soon as you see her. She's Melody Land, and we've brought her in today to talk to us about returning to work after a major concussion. So Melody, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So we have a lot to talk about today, but
Yep.
First, let's start off with kind of where you started. How did this happen and you end up off of work?
So it's a bit of an awkward and embarrassing story. And honestly, when you first asked me to do this, I wasn't sure if it was something that I wanted to do because I work in a professional setting and I didn't want people to think necessarily that I, didn't have all my ducks in a row. But I think it's important because I don't look like the typical person that is coming back to work from a major concussion.
Absolutely.
I'm not a big sport person. I didn't do this by any really great story. I actually did it to myself. So I think it was March 2021. I think that would be about 4 years ago this March. And COVID had just kind of opened up again. We were able to go to the theater. It was the first time in almost 2 years, a year and a half, that my husband and I had gone out of the house without the kid, and we were going to the theater, and I was really excited. And so for the occasion, I bought myself a pair of new shoes. And we were heading out, so I had my new shoes on, and they were sensible shoes. Just in case anybody's wondering, they were sensible shoes. But he was running behind, and I was irritated. I was also very excited. And I was to the car before he got there. I opened the car door. As I was doing that, I was looking at my nice new shoes, and I opened the car door with ferocity because I was also irritated that he was late, and I was excited to be going out. And so as I opened the car door and I was looking down, I literally opened the car door on my head, and it hit me right through this area. I didn't pass out. I kind of fell down. Everything went black in the middle, stars on the side. And my husband works in healthcare. And I knew if he knew I had done that, we wouldn't be going to the theater. So I didn't tell him. I cried a little and pulled myself into the car, and I sat down. And I closed my eyes and got my bearings a little bit, and then I pretended like nothing happened.
Wow.
Yeah. So 3 days later is when I realized something was really wrong. It was just a normal Saturday at home, and my husband was talking to me. I never forget it. I was in the kitchen doing kitchen-y things. My daughter was talking. I was doing my things. He was talking. And all of a sudden, it was just like information stimulus overload. Everything just immediately felt brighter. I was dizzy, and I noticed behavioral changes. I became very, very irritable, very angry, and I'm not that person ever, very rarely. And I was like, something's not okay. And so that is when I actually told him, okay, so this happened, and I don't think I'm all right. So I went to the doctor. I couldn't get into my family doctor for a month and a half, so I went to a clinic. And the doctor at the clinic had old school views of concussions. And he looked at me and said, you can't get a concussion from something like that. You didn't cut your head. You didn't do anything that would cause that. It's just probably a little bump. You'll be fine. So I went home, and things got worse and worse and worse. Finally, I saw my family doctor, and he immediately referred me to a specialist. And then I was diagnosed with and it took about 3-4 months for all of this to happen. I was diagnosed with a major concussion with vestibulo-ocular dysfunction. So that meant that the damage that was done was in the prefrontal cortex of my brain, and it was impacting my vision predominantly initially on this side of the eye, and thus began a very long journey.
Wow. I was shocked when you said how long ago this started.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about what the past several
years have looked like. The first 6 months was just a process of, is this even real? Because even though I am literally trained in how the brain functions, that's what I do on a day-to-day basis, when somebody in a position of authority tells you that you're fine and it's all in your head, pardon the pun, you believe it and you second guess yourself. So then I did the whole, is this real, is this not real? Once I had the medical validation for it, it was quite quickly I realized that I couldn't do the work that I once did, just by means of I was basically doing more damage. So at the time I was transferring, my business had shut down because of COVID, and I had started working online with clients again. And the screen time was damaging, causing further problems with my eyes. And so I reduced work. The challenges of having an accommodated work was very difficult. And this was a big company and a big organization with excellent policies and procedures and resources. So I can't imagine what it would be like in an organization that wasn't. The long story of that is that eventually I did resign from the position because I just couldn't maintain the workload that I needed to do. And I did take time off. So I was off of work for, at first, 3 or 4 months. And then I began physiotherapy. Unfortunately, if anybody is going through something like this, make sure your physiotherapist has specific training in concussion, because the initial one I went to had whatever the basic training was, but hadn't had experience or specialty, and so we actually did more damage than what was supposed to happen. So once I got into my specialist and worked with her for a little while, find yourself a good specialist, don't stop until you find it, because it set me back months. And yeah, it was hard. So I found a really great physiotherapist, but that was probably a good 6 months, 7 months after my initial injury.
How interesting. And how, like, for physical therapy with a concussion,
Yeah.
an ocular concussion,
Yeah.
what do you do?
That's what I
Yeah.
Right. Well, they do a lot of tests. It's really interesting. A lot of like eye movement tests, a lot of balance testing, and start very, very gently. So the first thing we simply did was just me tracking, reteaching my brain how to track movement. And so I would look on a piece of paper and then move my eyes to the side and look forward and move my eyes to the side. That's physiotherapy.
Wow.
We did a game with playing cards, so I'd have to stack cards and say what was on them. My timing, right? Being able to find numbers in a line or letters in a line that I was looking for. Everything slowed down substantially. So literally it's basically rewiring your brain to relearn how to do some of those behaviors.
What are you feeling like physically during this? Is this, I think when I think of a concussion as someone
Yeah.
who's only really kind of had one, I think of headaches and nausea. And did you have that for months and years?
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of nausea, which was interesting. Initially I did, but most of my nausea was related to the vestibular issues, so the dizziness, and so that would cause me to have some nausea. But the biggest thing was the headaches, the vision loss, like my eyes would kind of hurt sometimes just from the strain, pain through the neck and the shoulders. I had quite a bit. So there was like those types of physical symptoms. I think probably the hardest symptom to manage was the mental health side of things, because it is, even till now, there's a grieving process, because you recognize the cognitive, for me anyway, I lost the ability to find words. I still struggle with that. You'll notice sometimes I pause, and that's nothing that's ever been an issue for me, right? I've always had words, and that's never been a problem. But with that caused a real delay in my cognitive abilities, and that was hard to accept. That was hard to believe was real, and there was a lot of grief. So I had a lot of anger, a lot of sadness, a lot of recognizing, like the process of getting back to work, recognizing that I couldn't just go back to work. I wasn't going to be able to fix it, and that I had people counting on me that I couldn't do anything for, that the mental part of it was as much, if not more, than the physical.
Yeah, and I wonder now, as you're slowly stepping your way back into work, you, as long as I've known you, which has been a lot of years now, have never been a slow person. Like she's always got her hand in a lot. She's a lot like Jenna and I, a lot of different things going on.
That's how we met.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and raising a child all at the same time. What did it feel like to have to train yourself to slow down? Because we all know that's, like, concussion or not, we all know that's something we should all be doing.
Exactly.
And it's a shame that you had to have this injury to make your body realize that. But how do you feel about that now, kind of almost being on the other side of it?
It's hard to accept that for now, since the concussion, I've had another health issue which re-aggravated the concussion.
Okay.
So I am back into physiotherapy for the vestibular issues that I'm having. My vision, I just saw actually an eye doctor, the specialist in this, a couple of weeks ago, and they said, like, my vision's never going to be the same. I might have 20/20 vision, but things will always be fuzzy for me for the rest of my life because of this. And I've had to slow down because literally my brain and body don't work like they used to, and they may never work like they used to again. It's been hard. It's hard to put into words, especially I think maybe as women or as people who are in helping professions. I'm almost hardwired to go and do and give. And so having to pause and say, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Or feeling like you owe people explanations. And then, well, I know so-and-so had a concussion and they were right back at what they were doing. And understanding that you have to educate people. And why do I have to educate people? And there's this whole dynamic around it. Plus, I have a daughter who has disabilities. She's higher needs. And so there's a lot more energy that I have to put into that area. And I had to make some sweeping cuts of what I was doing because I don't have a 12-hour day anymore. Now, since my last health issues, I have about a 6-hour day of where I can, quote unquote, normally function.
Right.
And if I want to not be overtired, if I want to not have symptoms, and if I want to continue healing, that's the window I have. And it's so much grief, and it's so much relearning the patterns of what people expect and what you think people expect, and the ideas of what you expect for yourself. And it's an unlearning, and then it's a relearning process. My whole identity was related to my brain.
Right.
Everything. That was the one thing I always said was, I don't do a lot of things well. The one thing I do is people. And it's about communication. And so to lose those and to have to reduce the amount of doing that, it is a big identity shift. Yeah, and it's ongoing.
Talk a little bit about why you said yes to coming here and opening up about this.
My girl knows how to ask the questions. So it's been a long process. During this process, I've had a lot of therapy. I've had a lot of coaching. I've had a lot of physiotherapy. I've seen a lot of specialists. And during this process, I also was getting some licensing updated. I got a HR certification. ADHD is a thing. But one of my mentors, I was talking to her about this when I was working actively with her, Danielle Whalen, actually. You all know Danielle. And I said to her, I feel like people could learn from this, but I also recognize that doing what I do as a counseling therapist, even being a person, New Brunswick is a small town, essentially. I don't want people to judge it or to think of me as less than or less than capable. And so that was a very real fear, being honest about my health journey with this in particular and the other ones that have happened since. But I think that it's important to understand that concussions don't just happen to hockey players. It doesn't just happen if we slip on the ice and bump our head. It can happen to anybody, and it can be completely a mundane action. And you can heal from it, and you can relearn from it, and you can come back and do things and still be functioning and happy and healthy. It just looks different. So there was this like real push-pull of, I want people to know that, because I think it's important to say, but I also am scared, right? I'm scared that will it impact reopening? Will it impact my clients and their faith in the things that we do together and talk about? Future employers. It is possible that it could, I guess, but I think it's important to talk about, and it's important to be honest about, because not everybody that has chronic illness or that has a disability looks like it.
Right. Yeah, and that's something that I feel like the whole world is realizing more and more, or at least I'm hopeful for that anyway. So you had mentioned earlier about having to close down your business during COVID.
Yes.
And then you also just happened to throw in there a reopening.
Oh.
And
Yeah, I did.
I
didn't do that on purpose,
I catch
actually.
little words here
You
and
catch
there.
little words.
Yeah.
That's why you do what you do.
Yeah. So before the business that you had, Bluemind Lifestyle, it was on, am I right, Mountain Road?
Mountain Road.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what it was and then what it's going to be.
Well, what it was a luxury co-working space and collaborative for individuals that ran small and micro businesses from a variety of backgrounds and needed space but didn't need space full time. And we provided, and it was particularly for individuals, I think, marginalized business owners, women, newcomers, individuals in the queer community. It was just a really safe space. And out of that, we did a lot of coaching with one another. I also did counseling, life coaching, and human resource contracting, that sort of thing. So it has been since then that I've started taking on new clients privately. I worked for a company, for an EAP company for a little while, and then I had to stop. And then I decided to go back when I was ready. I went back with Sage Counselling, because I knew, they had great services and they were phenomenal in helping me get back on my feet, and so open. But we knew when I started, I said my eventual goal is to start taking clients again, seeing new individuals, and then see where the road takes me. So I just started accepting new clients again, which is really exciting. The collaborative aspect of Bluemind is re-emerging, but differently. We're probably not going to have a brick and mortar, at least for a couple of years, until we build up the web again of individuals. But I do have a counseling therapist that's going to be joining us, and in the spring, a licensed dietitian that specializes in intuitive eating is going to be joining our lineup, and we're going to kind of shift the focus and really lean into the wellness aspect, so we can offer packages and collaborative services to people, so they don't have to go to 5 different places to do something, that we can all collaborate together. And just taking new clients is huge for me, because I've had some of the same clients for about 2 years that have kind of stuck with me through the whole journey, and I always have the best clients, I really do. And they have stuck with me through the whole journey, but I haven't felt confident enough to take new clients on my own yet, because it's a lot of different things you've got to do on the back end of things. And paperwork's hard for me, because my brain doesn't function that well with it. So I'm really excited that I have some stuff in play, and we're starting to do that. So I'll be taking new clients in the new year. The social medias and stuff website is in development and all that fun things.
All in due time.
All in due time. And that's part of it too, is like it's pacing yourself. I wanted to have everything done when I came today, so I could be, here it is, and do the song and dance. But the reality is I had a very busy past 2 weeks, and I had to envelope my energy. And so the website didn't get finished, but it started.
Yep.
And so if people keep an eye out, you can find us on Facebook, or email me privately or phone. And if people want to start kind of lining things up for I guess, winter, it's midwinter already, January, for the new year.
Okay, excellent.
Share just a little bit about how that feels to be able to say that now.
I mean, also terrifying. Like, as I'm saying it, I'm thinking, take it back, take it back, take it back. But it's really, really exciting. It's, I'm really proud of myself. And I don't think we say that about ourselves enough, but I'm really proud of myself because I talk to clients, my clients, and the people, I mean, I love them. I adore the people that I work with. And you give guidance and direction. And then when you have to take your own, it's really difficult. But I'm so proud that I did it and that I did the hard thing, because the hard thing isn't just plowing ahead and putting your head down and doing it. The hard thing is actually looking after yourself and listening to that advice and slowing down and going to the appointments and doing the homework. That's the hard thing. And letting people down, that's the hard thing. And so I'm proud that I've done the hard thing, and that's enabled me to be able to feel very confident moving forward, that I have the skills and abilities and the capacity to, that's the big thing, the capacity to now move all those parts again. I had my first new client, just kind of soft launch yesterday, and it was phenomenal.
Amazing.
It was a home visit, which is a new service that I'll be doing because I don't have a brick and mortar, so I'll be able to do home visits. And it was just amazing, and it felt so good. It just felt so good.
Yeah, I can believe it. And I bet you now you're going to find more people in your same situation that will be able to reach out to you and say, like, how did you do this? This is what I've been working on for years, and may not be concussion related, but something that I think our generation, we were raised to feel like we're letting people down and we need to do all of the things, and then we had all this technology thrown in our upbringing, and suddenly we're in everybody's pockets all the time.
Exactly.
So a lot of us, I think, are feeling this exact same way, right? The need to slow down, the need to talk to somebody about something that anything that you could potentially be dealing with, and to find somebody that has had to slow down, that has actually done the work to do these things, I think will make a big difference.
I think so. I've had clients that have had chronic illness in the past, or have had different disabilities, struggles, health struggles, and honestly, like your empathy can be there, but now having experienced it myself, like I never say I know what you're feeling, but I get it, and I get it. Like, I get what that hard work looks like. I get how scary it is. I get how overwhelming it can be. And so I think that's going to benefit. I think that is going to benefit people. I think it's going to benefit my clients, and hopefully, anybody that, because again, I don't necessarily fit the bill, but you see me like this. You don't see me at home laying down or in the car after we do this. I'm going to have to sit down and close my eyes for a little while, right, before I move on to see my next clients of the day. So it is important, and I think it is going to be beneficial.
It is, and I think it's hugely admirable and fantastic that you came and shared this openly. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And thank you all for watching, for listening. We'll be back again next week with another episode, and make sure to check the show notes, because that's where you'll find all of the contact information you're going to want to find for Melody.
See you next week.